Welcome everyone here and everyone that's joining us virtually. It's a pleasure to be able to go ahead and update our membership on all the things that WIP has been carrying on, even though we haven't been able to meet in our usual way with our luncheons. We still are rumbling along, and advisory board is having their meetings as usual, and so is grants committee. And we felt that since we had not been able to have our 2 luncheons, there's so much that we've been accomplishing, we wanted to be able to share it in some way with our membership. So that's why we're going ahead and having this virtual, it's not a luncheon, it's a virtual membership update, really. And so I want to start off by thanking the community church here for allowing us to use their beautiful space to make our videotape. I want to thank Community Foundation for all the support that they give us all year long. Debbie Cahoon, Jennifer Phillips, they just rework our flyers, they put out our newsletter, they support us in so many ways. So I want to thank them for that. I also want to take a couple of minutes to acknowledge the members of our advisory board. Each of them has a specific area of expertise, and they do it very thoroughly and very well. And even though we've been in the midst of a pandemic, we haven't missed a single meeting. We haven't been able to hold them in the conference room of the Community Foundation the way we normally do, but we've been meeting in my office and doing a lot by telephone and getting the job done. So the first person that I want to acknowledge is Kathy Bateson. Kathy has been a member of WIP for many, many years, and she's held just about every position of note. She was grants committee chair for 2 years, and she's just concluded her 2 years as chair of the advisory board. Kathy, if you'll come up. I have a presentation for you signed by every member of the advisory board, which was the hardest part, getting everybody. I'd like to read it. Be it resolved that Kathleen Bateson has served Women in Philanthropy with distinction as an advisory board member for 6 years and as advisory board chair for 2 years. Additionally, she has served as advisory committee chair of the Grants Committee for 2 years. In these demanding roles, she's been a centering voice and an outspoken advocate of our mission. Her thoughtful leadership and guidance have enriched the Women in Philanthropy Advisory Board, and ultimately the Beaufort County community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Women in Philanthropy Advisory Board, a fund of Community Foundation of the Lowcountry, does extend to Kathleen Bateson its sincere appreciation for her numerous contributions, her valuable wisdom, and her dedication to service during her term on the board, with all our appreciation and gratitude. Thank you, Kathy.
Oh, this is such an honor. It's been an honor and a privilege. I was one of the founding, I think we're at maybe 18 years now, and it's been a pleasure to serve all those years for such a worthy cause with just the most incredible women in the world and the most fantastic nonprofits. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for all that you've done for women in philanthropy. I'd like to also introduce, or I would say acknowledge, other advisory board members that don't have presentations, but their work has been very valuable. And the first one is Anushka Fry. She's Communications Director, Women in Philanthropy, and she largely puts together the newsletter that you read monthly, and it comes out online. So we also have Betty Irby. She's the newest member of our board, and Betty is in charge of governance, so she keeps us all in line and keeps our paperwork up to date. We also have Peaches Peterson, who's here today, and thank you, Peaches, for all the work that you've done putting this video together. She secured the venue for us and the people to make the video, and she's just kept us on track all the way because this is it's a new way for us to communicate with the membership. Thank you, Peaches, for all of that. Next, I want to introduce Martha McDonald. Martha is in charge of the membership committee along with Kay Black, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what membership is doing at this point. Martha Ann?
Yeah, most of you know me as Martha Ann.
Did I mispronounce it?
No, you just said Martha.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Martha Ann.
Thank you very much. I think all of us can be very proud and pleased with what we have been able to, what the membership has been able to accomplish over the last few years. Your gifts have provided over $600,000 of grants to the Beaufort community. And in addition, we've been able to build an endowment of over $1 million that is still growing and will keep meeting the needs of our neighbors long after we are gone. I know of no other charitable group in the Lowcountry that is doing that, and there may be others, but I'm not aware of them. One of our goals this year is to increase our membership, and we are looking to you, the members, to be the drivers of that endeavor. Our fingers are crossed that each of you will bring a new friend into the group within the next 3 to 5 months, and maybe more than one. It's always fun to have our friends doing things with us. We'll try to make it easy and fun for you to do that. There's several events scheduled that will be fun to bring a friend along to, and in addition, we will be scheduling neighborhood events that where we will do the work for you in terms of introducing WHIP and telling people, you know, what the organization is all about and what the benefits of membership are. Our membership and grants brochures, and I have them here, have been updated and contain a lot of information for you and for new prospective members to tell them about the organization. And I think it makes it easy to bring in people with the benefit of those brochures. They are on the website, and you can go to the website and direct those to people you would like to have them, send a personal note, and just let them know what WHIP means to you. The websites also tell about some of the other benefits of membership, such as experiencing how the shared value of generosity brings people of all races, faiths, and political views together. Having a dedicated grants committee ensures that the nonprofit's request is in line with the designated theme, which we as the members select, and that the nonprofit will be effective in their use and accountability of the funds. Also, participating in collective giving provides greater input and influence than giving individually. I want to leave you with 3 things to focus on and remember. 1, put on your calendar that the new date for making contributions is January 1 of each year, regardless of when you made contributions in the past. And secondly, focus on trying to bring a new member in by the 3rd quarter of 2021. And last, and probably most importantly, know that by giving to Women in Philanthropy, you will be leaving a lasting legacy that will impact the lives of people in the Lowcountry for generations to come. Thank you. Grow WHIP.
Thank you, Martha Ann. I just wanted to add to what Martha Ann said, or reiterate that every member of WHIP is a center of influence for their own friends and family. So as you talk about WHIP, people will be interested, and You can maybe bring in a few more members from your own circle of influence. The next advisory board member that I'd like to introduce is the person that probably has the most difficult and time-consuming job in all of WIP, and that's our Grants Committee Chair. Andy Purple has done a fantastic job, and since we've had to make dates for luncheons and cancel dates for luncheons and then make a date for video, and she's had to correspond with 2 years of grants recipients through each one of these changes. She's had a very difficult year this year. So I'd like to introduce Andy Purple.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It has been difficult, but it's been a lot of fun. Got to meet a lot of new people over and over and over again. And so we're going to tell you a little bit about those people. They're going to tell you a little bit about what they're doing now. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the 2019 grantees who will report on their programs in support of the 2019 theme, Preserving Our Lowcountry Heritage and History. First up is Linda Ferguson with the Bluffton Boys and Girls Club.
That was difficult. Good morning, everybody, and good morning to the women in philanthropy. My name is Linda Ferguson, and I'm one of the instructors for the Boys and Girls Club Umoja African Drumming Group. The other instructor was Dorothy Maggi, and she couldn't make it today. But you don't have the, oh gosh. Okay, I was going to say if we had the PowerPoint, you could see the beautiful pictures of the members and of the activities that we were involved in. But with the help of the funds from the Women in Philanthropy, we were able to purchase a complete set of drums, and they're beautiful drums. And we're also able to purchase T-shirts for all of the members of the Boys and Girls Club who were involved in the drumming group. And these little djembes, these are called djembes. We purchased one for every Boys and Girls Club member who participated in the group. This is such a wonderful PowerPoint. I think instead of me talking, I'm going to pick out some highlights from the PowerPoint. And I said thank you to the Women in Philanthropy for providing funds so that we could implement our new drumming group, and we called it Umoja. The low country of South Carolina is known as the Gullah Corridor. As Gullah people survived and thrived for centuries, the isolated rural communities, today the Gullah culture is endangered as development in our area continues and Gullah people lose their traditions. Women in Philanthropy supported the Boys and Girls Club of Bluffton to ensure that the Gullah culture is taught and preserved for our young members by creating the African Drumming and Dance Group that embraces this tradition, music, and shares this music that is such an important part of the Low Country's history through our performances. Our African Drumming and Dance Group educated the members of the Boys and Girls Club about the culture from which they emerge, preserving the traditional music of Gullah people. And this was so important because we just didn't identify African American people. We worked with Latinos and Caucasian and people of all different colors. This program also taught the importance of working as a team, promoted discipline, allowed members to express themselves creatively, developed listening skills, which we know Boys and Girls Club today, boys and girls really need to develop their listening skills. We enhanced self-esteem and emphasized character lessons about responsibility, respect, control, and working to achieve goals. The members had to earn the right to participate in the group, as well as maintain good behavior and good grades. They also had to had to be able to attend the majority of the practices that we had weekly. Members learned very polyrhythms. Those are rhythms that are played simultaneously, whether they're on the drum or using the go-go or using the shakeree. They learned to dance to the rhythms too. In combination with learning about music, African music, members also learned about the importance of respect, which is a key message in the African community and also in the Gullah community. This program promoted respect and appreciation of the ancient cultural music, as well as respect for the instruments, themselves, and others. So what were the outcomes? Outcome number 1, students improved their listening skills by demonstrating the ability to identify and perform at least 5 different West African polyrhythms. They were given a pre-test in the beginning, and unfortunately, we could not give them a post-test because of COVID. Outcome number 2, students learned responsibility and respect by participating in at least 90% of the weekly rehearsals. Outcome number 3, students increased their knowledge of the Gullah Geechee history, and that was one of the main reasons for, I believe, the Women in Philanthropy giving us these funds to do this. And I'm being told that I need to wrap it up, so thank you again, Women in Philanthropy. The members of the Boys and Club thoroughly enjoyed being able to participate in the musical group. We were able to perform twice. We did the Bluffton Christmas Parade, and we also performed in February for the Black History Month. And we thank you so much again for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Linda. And it's a shame that we couldn't have the drummers with us. If we had been live in person, they did a but we will put the video on the website so you all can see it. Great job that they did. So next up, we have Vicki Prescott from Able Foundation.
Good morning. I'm Vicki Prescott. I'm the planning specialist in the day program at Beaufort County Disabilities and Special Needs. I'm representing the Able Foundation, which provides support and resources to a lot of our consumers. We were the recipient of the grant, Preserving the Lowcountry History and Heritage, and we did several different events under this grant. Today, I just want to talk about 2 of those, though. The first was that we took cooking lessons at the Gullah Grub restaurant. This was a huge hit. They really enjoyed doing this. They learned to cook things such as cabbage and rice, shrimp and grits, and macaroni and cheese. Yeah, it was delicious. They learned not only the process of preparing for the cooking lesson, they prepared the food, they cooked it, and then they were involved in the cleanup. Our hope for this is that they can continue to build on the skill and carry it with them for the rest of their life. We also toured the Sea Eagle Market docks at Village Creek, and we were able to see them unload the shrimp from the shrimp boat, bring it up, and prepare it for sale. So those were the two big key events that we were able to do. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we were left with a balance in our fund, but we have specific plans for using this as soon as we get back. We plan to do some staff guided tours around the Beaufort area for our consumers. We have someone scheduled to make crab pots for us and do an exhibition on that, and we plan to take carriage rides in the Beaufort area. So we thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a wonderful experience for our consumers, and we look forward to continuing on.
Thank you, Vicki. Next up is Rex Garnowitz with the Coastal Discovery Museum.
Thank you so much, Women in Philanthropy, both in person and virtual. We're tremendously appreciative of your support for the Coastal Discovery Museum and our program, Sweetgrass Baskets, Weaving Gullah History and Heritage. This was funded by Women in Philanthropy, but it was really driven, the reason we wanted to do it is because the Gullah basket makers on our property really needed raw materials. And so we saw them, they were pulling the sweetgrass basket from our ornamental sweetgrass basket plants in the property. And they said, it's so hard to get this sweetgrass now. And so one of the things that Women in Philanthropy funded was planting of 150 sweetgrass plants. And if you see them now, they're starting to bloom. They all have those beautiful purple blooms on them. And this field is really starting to take over. And so that will, within a year, be providing enough sweetgrass for 150 baskets. And so the basket makers are allowed to come and harvest that, dry it out, and use it for their baskets. They're under increasing pressure, and all of their other places they gather have been developed, and so there's not access to that sweetgrass like it was. And so that's a great contribution to not just the Coastal Discovery Museum, but to the Gullah community on Hilton Head Island. One of the things that we also noticed is the sweetgrass basket makers are really great at teaching history and heritage with school groups because they have these physical things. They have the sweetgrass and they use that as they tell their stories. And it makes that history come alive in a way that it doesn't when you read it in a book. And so one of the things that we did in addition to what was funded by the grant is we started a teacher workshop series. And it was canceled this year due to COVID, but we postponed all of those teacher enrollments to this coming year. And they're very excited to work with the basket makers and learn how to tell those stories and teach that history. We also designed and implemented a series of adult basket maker classes. And so far in this prior year, we reached 139 individuals and adults with this program. And it's really great to see them suddenly understand and appreciate this history, whether it's their history or they're not actually Gullah people, but they're fascinated by this history. And the baskets are a great way to understand that. And so we're doing additional Gullah basket making programs in the spring of 2021 as well. The third sort of major component of this was to put permanent signage up at the museum. We have one sign which was funded, which is up, and we're working on a second sign about the baskets. And one of the things that we found during COVID times is having this 68-acre property that people can socially distance and explore on their own has been great for families. and for students who are being homeschooled. And so we've seen a tremendous increase in use of our property, especially by parents who want to get out of the house and take their kids out of the house and walk around the property. So producing signs like that for us allows people to learn this story, to learn about the history that took place here, and to appreciate both nature and history together on our property. And so thank you so much for supporting the Coastal Discovery Museum and for supporting this project. You have impacted a lot of people and will impact many more over the years as this garden will continue to grow and produce raw material for sweetgrass baskets. Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. That was one of our field trips, is to go out to the museum and look at the sweetgrass sprouting. Next up is Deborah Colella, Foundation for Education Excellence.
Hi, I'm Dr. Deborah Colella, and I'm here representing the Foundation for Educational Excellence and Whale Branch Middle School Archaeology Club, their project, Revolution in the Low Country. This group, this archaeology group, started with a couple old metal detectors and found out and had verified that Whale Branch Middle School had been built on the site of a plantation, Rupelmond Plantation. And the most amazing thing that they found was that many of the families that were presently attending Whale Branch Middle School had ancestors that had been enslaved on that plantation. So the interest was very high. We had Eugene Bruger, a teacher, Dr. Pamela Story, Dr. Dan Battle, and myself. And when I opened an email from one of our former chairpersons, Jackie Rossworm, and it said, you may want to look into this. And I looked at the theme, and it was preserving our low country heritage and history. And I was like, oh my gosh, this totally is going to be the revolution in the low country. So we did a grant, and we received it, and thank you very much to Women in Philanthropy for letting us have the money, because it really has allowed so much more for these kids to do. They've learned all sorts of scientific skills. They've researched their own personal heritage. They've expanded through Dr. Battle to go and visit archaeological sites, one that's just about a quarter-mile down the road, where the Battle of Beaufort took place, another one or two out by Parris Island, one actually on Parris Island. So they have been able to do things that a regular Beaufort County education would never have allowed them to do. And that's our mission, to reinforce and provide innovative learning opportunities for students in Beaufort County schools. Some of the things. To date, our funds have been spent on additional metal detectors and other tools to assist students in going to the digs and uncovering things. Our portable kiosk, which Elizabeth saw, over at the Port Royal Farmers Market. We had a lot more scheduled, but COVID, so those things were canceled, but they'll be back on. We've had, and when the kiosk included mounting of photos, tables. We had aerial drone mapping by Gacy Photography in Beaufort. And then we really lucked out when Dr. Battle donated to the foundation and to Whale Branch Middle School Museum maybe 100 artifacts, bills of sale, quilts, horse collars, pictures of some of the slave people, pictures of all sorts of stuff going on, even an almanac from, I believe it was 1849. So that's what we're going to be spending the rest of our funds on, getting that stuff together, curating it, making sure that the paper documents are being properly preserved. What else? That's about it. I was going to say any questions, but this isn't a question and answer. Sorry. Anyway, thanks again, Women in Philanthropy. We're so delighted that you chose us. And this is going to have echoes throughout this county for these families and for everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Deborah. Next up is from Heritage Library Foundation, Barbara Cantanisi.
Hi, I'm Barbara Catanese. I'm the Executive Director for Heritage Library. Library was absolutely thrilled to receive funding from Women in Philanthropy. And it's probably not the sexiest project that we funded or the most fun, or that you funded or the most fun, but what we did with your funding was we upgraded our technology. We had a server that was slowly but surely dying, and right now we have speed and we have space. And that's important to us because what we are is the keeper of Hilton Head Island's history. We are a history and ancestry research center. So we are the repository for Hilton Head's history, but we also work with individuals and families as they research their own family history. And most importantly, what we want to do is share that history. And updated databases allow us to do that. We have now the ability to continually document our local history through specific research. Things like we recreated the 1890 census. The 1890 census was destroyed in a fire in Washington, D.C., and we now have a recreated census that covers Beaufort, Jasper, Hampton, and Colleton County. That's important for folks researching their family history because there was a decade that was lost. We also completed and posted a project called The Reconstruction Era on Hilton Head Island that tells the story of Reconstruction on Hilton Head, from the people, the land sales, and education. Upgraded technology is really the backbone of what we do. We assist local groups in preserving their history. We present classes and programs that teach about our local history and teach you to discover your own history. We're in school classrooms. We do field trips to our sites. The other thing that upgraded technology allowed us to do this year was post as much as we could online and open up resources to teachers, parents, and students during COVID. We can research, we can collect, and we can document, but unless we share it, it's kind of useless. So what we're about is making sure with this technology that everyone who wants access to our local history and wants to continue family research can do that. And your donation allowed us to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Next up from Penn Center is Ethel Sumter.
Good morning, afternoon, I'm not sure. Thank you to Women in Philanthropy. My name is Ethel Sumter. I'm from Penn Center. I'm a Board of Trustees member, and we are ever so grateful for this donation that was given to the York W. Bailey Museum. The flooring, after I don't know how many years and years of service, has been replaced with beautiful floors that reflects a kind of a different presentation to people as they walk through the museum. So we thank you immensely for that. The museum has exhibits of tools used by midwives who taught classes at Penn Center. We have the doctor's bag from resident physician on St. Helena at the time, the only one we are aware of, African American, in whom the museum was named after, is York W. Bailey. We have wheel writing equipment, a corn grinding machine. There are all kinds of things to see, and of course we have exhibits from different artists, different periods of time throughout the year. So we're in the midst now of trying to open at appointment-only times, hoping that we will have some relief in the new year. But we thank you immensely for this. They're beautiful floors, and we appreciate it ever so much.
Thank you, Ethel. Next up, Alana Adams from the Arts Center of Coastal Carolina.
Hello, my name's Alana Adams, and I'm the Senior Director of Education at the Arts Center of Coastal Carolina, a proud recipient of a 2019 Women in Philanthropy grant. In keeping with the theme of this year's grant, we were able to offer an education and outreach program that explored different components of Gullah history and culture through providing these services to schools, the community, families, and teachers across Beaufort County. The first part of the program was an artist in residence program that we were able to have 2 sweetgrass basket weavers participate in. These Gullah elders were able to go into the elementary schools and work with 3rd graders across southern Beaufort County to teach them how, when they're studying South Carolina history, how important the sweetgrass baskets and culture and history are, especially to our region here in the Low Country. The students were able to participate in the hands-on component of learning how the sweetgrass baskets are sewn, learning again about the materials and the history of them, and then were able to produce their own small pieces that they were able to weave themselves with the techniques that they had learned. And so the grant was able to fund the artists for their time and efforts as well as the materials for those programs. We also were able to have the Sweetgrass Basket Weavers do a professional workshop for teachers. We feel at the Arts Center that professional development is one of the most important things that we can provide for our schools and for our community because it teaches the man to fish, not just giving them fish. So we really think that by teaching the teachers, they're going to be able to serve children for years to come, learning again about the importance of the Gullah culture and sweetgrass baskets and the role that that plays in our community. We were also able to work with artist Natalie Days, who is a wonderful a Gullah storyteller. She was able to participate in our annual Taste of Gullah Festival that we have at the Arts Center. This festival is a free community festival that we offer every year that allows people to come and try out some of the culinary arts, lots of different Gullah foods. It's in partnership with NIBCA and some other organizations, and we have a beautiful Gullah exhibit in our gallery, and Natalie Days was able to share some storytelling, lectures, as well as a hands-on craft with our community there in February. In addition, we were able to provide a new service at Hilton Head Island School for the Creative Arts. We were able to help them produce their first annual Family Gullah Festival. This event was attended by hundreds of kids and their families from the school, and they were able to come one evening to the school and learn so much about all the different arts and history and culture of the Gullah people. So we had a chef, Sally Ann Robinson was there, and they were able to try out samples of some of the food with a cooking demonstration. We had a Mary Ferris there doing a painting demonstration, lots of community organizations. We had Dr. Campbell doing some Gullah history lectures, and Natalie Days doing storytelling. So it was great. There were lots of different sections in the building where people could go and learn about lots of different aspects of the Gullah culture. So on behalf of the 2,233 students and family members and educators and community members that were able to participate in these programs, we would like to thank Women in Philanthropy for your generous support and look forward to partnering with community organizations like yours to continue to provide services to our community here in Beaufort County. Thank you.
Okay, last but not least, and I don't know who's going to help him up, but Ahmad Ward from Mitchellville Preservation Project. We saved the best for last, Ahmad.
Well, hello. My name is Ahmad Ward. I am the Executive Director for Historic Mitchellville Freedom Park, also informally known as the Mitchellville Preservation Project. And we are here discussing creating the Mitchellville Community Imprint. So first of all, we'd like to thank Women in Philanthropy, the Community Foundation of the Low Country, and of course Hilton Head Island Community Church for allowing us to do this here. The mission of Historic Mitchellville Freedom Park is to preserve, promote, and honor historic Mitchellville, the first self-governed town of formerly enslaved people in the United States. And so to do this, we have 33 acres of property to try to cover 158 years of history, which there used to be about 200 to 300 acres of property to work with. And so we don't have a lot to go on. And so this project has allowed us to figure out exactly where we are and where we need to go. So due to the generous support of WIP, we were able to implement this project to support wages for our field director, Catherine Sieber, who's been with us for about 3 years now, and her staff, Ben Hickman, Mark Richter, Wei Ho Ning, and Emily Sands, and also to offset some unforeseen costs for lodging. So the team was on site for about 6 weeks between June and July of 2019 in order to excavate the backside of what we believe to be the historic church in our property, to have several small excavations to determine the locations of homes, and magnetometry, sonar, geophys, and all other signs of kind of names that I can't pronounce for you right now, to locate the general store on the historic property. So this is what happened. The field and lab session produced a wealth of archaeological information about historic Mitchellville, most of which we are still processing and analyzing. The team excavated fully 27 1x1 meter test units, 16 shovel test pits, and collected 5 60-minute oral histories. That has so far produced 1,300 artifacts, about 400 of which are colonial ware. And colonial ware is a mixture of African and Native American influence in pottery, which also included about several Civil War era objects. A combination of 12 undergraduate and graduate students have worked in the Binghamton Archaeology Lab in upstate New York to wash, sort, catalog, and analyze artifacts and micro-artifacts, soil samples. This research has produced several presentations and papers, and further research is going to be necessary to fully uncover the location of the general store. The majority of this research was spent on confirming the church location, and during this research, we were able to determine there is a 4,000-year-old Native American imprint on the same site. So all of my plans for what I was going to do on that area have pretty much gone out the window. So we have to redo how we're thinking about the church, and what we have done is determine a way to talk about the importance of the church, the importance of what it meant to that community, but also to link to that 4,000-year-old Native American imprint. So over the course of the summer, because this is a public archaeology project, the team and the docents interacted with 1,477 people who were coming into the park to try to learn more about what we had to offer. The only thing that COVID did to us was to delay the creation of our sign. which talks a little bit more about what this project did. So I'm happy to announce that our sign is completed, it's in my office, and you'll be able to come and see it in the park in early November. So I would like to take this time to just really thank Women in Philanthropy again, because this project allowed us to finish our master plan, which is a beautiful document which will chronicle the course of what Mitchellville will be doing for the near future. Thank you for your support from Mitchellville and what we're trying to do here, and we look forward to working with you again in the future. Thank you.
Okay, those are great, great projects. We're so happy to have funded them all. And I just want to thank you all for all that you do for our community. So next up, and we couldn't have everybody here, so I'm just going to go through the 2020 grant awardees. Our theme in 2020 was providing enrichment and readiness for at-risk children. We had so many good applications to address this issue, but unfortunately our fund levels precluded us from granting them all. The awards we did make in support of this theme included the following nonprofit organizations in Beaufort County. Able Foundation, $5,000 for Beaufort County Bright Beginnings, to provide support for disabled at-risk children who are mentally challenged from birth to 5 years old. Art Center of Coastal Carolina, $9,000, a performing arts program for at-risk youth. They presented performing arts programs using puppets for 17 schools of pre-K classes and also provide teacher guidance and curriculum materials for at-risk students. Born to Read, $6,000, books for babies, to provide resource bags at 3 area hospitals for new parents to promote early childhood literacy and language development. Bluffton Boys and Girls Club, $15,000. Explorers Learning for Life program, in mentorship with the Bluffton Police Department, provide an education and career development program for teens aged 12 through 18 while enhancing and building life, character, and leadership skills. Hilton Head Island Boys and Girls Club, $3,000. A creative movements program to create a suite of creative movement activity programs to engage club members in more physical activity and exercise their bodies and minds. Child Abuse Prevention Association, CAPA, $10,000 for equipping families for at-risk children. They provide an on-site training for resource families to prevent placement breakdowns in the child family foster program. Children's Cancer Partners of the Carolinas, $12,000. Childhood Cancer Safety Net, provide a portion of the costs for emotional, logistical, and financial assistance to Beaufort County children battling cancer and their families. Hilton Head Recreation Association, $12,000. Therapeutic Recreation, provide financial assistance to 55 children with special needs to attend a therapeutic recreation program for a safe and fun camp experience. Second Helpings, $1,800, a K-12 food rescue program where they enlisted will enlist 3 Beaufort County elementary schools for students to participate in this national program, which rescues food not eaten at schools while also learning about food value and safety and preventing food waste. Women of Faith Empower Ministries, $4,000. The Better Ready for Tomorrow program provides support for family units which are critical for survival and development for at-risk children. The Community Foundation of the Lowcountry, $5,000 in support of the COVID-19 matching campaign. And the record grand total for FY 2020 was $82,800. $82,800. So this put us over the $600,000 level in total giving since 2006. Terrific. Okay, on to 2021. Hopefully we can get there. Our theme for 2021 is to provide a new major impact program to assist in recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic in 3 areas: medical and mental health issues, education K through 5, including special needs, and employment issues. We're going to be sending out the letter to the nonprofits and accepting grant applications for this new theme in the new year. So I'd like to give a huge thank you to my former and current grants committee members who have been very diligent in reviewing grant applications and selecting those that align with membership priorities. And of course, we couldn't do this without the WIP's membership's generous support. So thank you all, members. Let me now introduce Advisory Board Vice Chair and Education Committee Chair, Leslie Gilbert.
Thank you, Andy, and let me add my welcome to all Women in Philanthropy members and any guests or visitors that may be joining us. I have the pleasure today to introduce our speaker on one of our identified themes that Andy just mentioned, mental health. If this were a normal year, we would have had time for questions, which I'm sure with this topic you would have had many. We are hopeful that later in the year we will be able to have that opportunity to connect with professionals in these areas to allow you to have some of those questions. And if I could also put in a plug, we've got some nice events planned and we'd love to see you there and bring a friend. I don't know about you, but it seems to me that a day doesn't go by that news outlets don't have some coverage of the impact of COVID on an aspect of the mental health of our fellow citizens. With your votes on our 2021 theme, it was obvious that we needed someone to talk to us on a personal level about this serious topic. With our grants in 2021, we will have an opportunity to make a difference. Today we have joining us Peggy Brennan. As you can see from her profile, she is a board-certified psychiatric clinical nurse specialist. Mouthful. In her professional career, she has worked in many acute care settings, hospice care, home care, teaching, and private practice. Since moving to Hilton Head, she has continued to share her expertise as a volunteer psychotherapist with Volunteers in Medicine, including through this pandemic. She received both a Bachelor of Science in Nursing Science, a Master of Science in Psychiatric Mental Health Nursing from Virginia Commonwealth University Medical College of Virginia in Richmond, Virginia. In our conversations, Peggy also made me aware that she is part of a nationwide network of mental health professionals who talk regularly on Zoom. The importance of them taking care of themselves during these challenging times is something that might be overlooked as they take care of others. She is also married with 3 grandchildren, and I can attest to this, 5 adorable grands. So with that, Peggy, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Leslie. And thank you, Women in Philanthropy, who are watching, for allowing me to have this time to speak with you today. I want to say, wow, I have been sitting listening to the recipients of previous grants, and I am feeling enlightened and inspired by the breadth of the work that Women in Philanthropy have been and continue to do to meet the needs and causes of our neighbors throughout the Low Country. I say Bravo. Cheers to you. As Leslie pointed out, we have all been inundated with headlines in the newspaper and articles and on our televisions and radio, information about COVID. Seems to me, I felt like I've been eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a number of months now. Today, because I'm going to be talking to you, as I've been asked, to talk about the impact on mental health, there may be a lot of facts and information that you already have. Excuse me. I want to, in this little bit of time, first of all, define mental health. A lot of people don't know what mental health is or the importance of mental health. I'm not saying that that's you, but I know that to be true with a lot of people I've met in my life. I want to also talk about the overarching effect that the pandemic has had on our health, with particularly emphasis on mental health, both because of the threat that it has posed to our physical well-being and to our mortality, but also the guidelines, the mitigation strategies that are absolutely necessary for our safety have also affected mental health. And I will hope to say a little bit about how the changes that we have all experienced, necessary changes, have also affected us, and with particular emphasis on families and children, as I was asked to mention those very precious populations. So what is mental health? Mental health is defined as emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It's important because it affects how we handle stress, how we relate to others, and how we make everyday choices and decisions. It is a positive state of mind and body feeling safe and able to cope with a sense of connection with people, with communities, and the larger environment in which we live. Mental health is vital throughout life, and it is prominent to our general health. It is absolutely true that the ankle bone is connected to the leg bone, is connected to the knee bone, is connected to the hip bone. The same is true with mental health in relationship to our overall general health. As a practitioner for many more years than I probably have ahead of me, I would say that you really cannot have one without the other. Okay. A healthy response in normal, stressful situations, and there is stress in our lives from the time we wake up in the morning, sometimes just hearing the alarm go off. But normally, a healthy response is one in which the stressor and its effects are identified, effective actions to reduce and or eliminate the stressors are taken, and one is able to cope, to manage, and function. Even then, in these normal sets of circumstances, one may experience feelings of anxiety and or depression. We know that to be true with physical illness when people are injured or they are hospitalized. And look at the number of folks we know in our lives and across the nation who have had to be hospitalized, that it is normal to respond in those circumstances with anxiety and or depression. That does not mean, while it's normal, that it doesn't need attention. Just like when you have a fever, it needs to be checked out often to identifying the underlying culprit, whether or not there's an infection that might need treatment. So is also true with anxiety and depression. An example of an acute situation that gets taken care of seemingly as quickly as possible would be Hurricane Matthew. The storm came, it landed, it had a beginning, and it had an ending. Local, state, and federal aid were provided, as these bits of aid are normally provided when there are natural disasters. Still, there were long-standing effects to people lasting long after the aid came to a halt, especially regarding mental health needs. Initially in a crisis, focus tends to be on survival needs, such as safety, food, and shelter. Indeed, during these times of meeting survival needs, one is hard-pressed to even think about emotional and psychological needs. So I want to also say that all efforts that are made to meet basic needs are also helpful in preventing emotional and psychological fallout from not having those needs met. Newspapers and professional journals and national organizations such as the CDC and NAMI have identified the need for attention to emotional and psychological effects of COVID, as well as identifying our inadequate mental health system throughout the nation. And I would say that my experience here in the Low Country, particularly because I live in Hilton Head, I can underscore that inadequacy personally. From the pandemic, we are having increased numbers of calls across the nation to NAMI, the CDC, Mental Health America, helplines of all kinds, with folks identifying symptoms of trauma-related stress disorder. Not uncommon in crisis situations. However, we are no longer in an acute phase. In its stay with us, COVID-19 pandemic has shifted from an acute situation to a chronic one, now lasting longer than 6 months, yielding magnifying negative effects on emotional and psychological stability. How many of us sometimes point to the heavens and ask, how long, when are we going to get to the other side? This chronic nature has taken a toll because along with it comes chronic, unrelieved, high stress levels, and currently there's no end in sight. Living with COVID-19 in our midst has brought unimaginable changes in our way of daily life. In fact, the very guidelines we are asked to follow, as I mentioned earlier, the mitigation strategies, have untoward effects on one's psychological state. Isolation, distancing, wearing masks, fear of constant threat and danger, loss with now widespread grief nationwide, and financial insecurity are with us all every day. All these factors contribute to the experience of anxiety and depression and psychological fragility, even among those who are healthy. And I want to say that again, even among those of us who are healthy. Anxiety and depression are worthy of attention and assessment, no matter what the situations are that might be causing them, rather than ignored. Across our nation and worldwide, COVID-19 associated morbidity, mortality, and mitigation actions have created mental health challenges, as there is now increased reporting of symptoms, as I said earlier, of trauma-related stress disorder. Additionally, national social unrest and partisan politics have intensified, contributing to national stress and fear. Altogether, we have a climate ripe with threats to our emotional and psychological well-being. And while we have this climate ripe with such threats, we also are way behind the start line with the services needed to meet the needs. The presence of long-term stress, especially when essential resources, which are wearing thin in a lot of cases, both internal and external resources are not in place and available to us. This breeds susceptibility to mental illness. This is of utmost importance to those among us who are the most vulnerable, and certainly children are among the most vulnerable. According to the CDC, those most vulnerable includes the marginalized and underprivileged, meaning the poor, those with disability, those with pre-existing mental illness who may have limited coping skills and are dependent on community support systems, some of which have closed or their hours have been shortened. Those with limited emotional tolerance and inadequate self-regulation. We sometimes hear of these temper outbursts, angry outbursts, even when people are told they need to wear a mask and they don't want to. These are examples of limited emotional tolerance and inadequate self-regulation. And sometimes it's just the straw that breaks the camel's back that can precipitate that. The unemployed, those less educated, people who live alone, young adults, racial, ethnic minorities, essential workers, frontline workers, and unpaid caregivers. Understandably, as I said before, children whose care is inadequate are a part of these at-risk populations. Now, as I identified those groups of people, you can readily understand that we're talking about a lot of people who are at risk. What we have and continue to experience is the onslaught of what a professor of political science and medicine describes as an invisible threat. We don't know who is infected. Anyone could have it. She goes on to describe the COVID-19 as an ambiguous threat. We don't know how bad it will get or how long it will last. And lastly, a global threat. No community is safe. Another professor of public health identified COVID as a slow motion disaster. In a current mental health journal, there was COVID was cited as a secondary crisis of psychological distress and mental health spillover. We must consider the mental health impact as well as the physiological and epidemiological. A psychiatrist from nearby MUSC stated, if we don't focus on the mental health from the beginning, issues will be felt decades down the road. Because there still remains a stigma associated with mental health, many continue to suffer in silence. NAMI reports results of a survey conducted in June 2020, polling more than 83,000 respondents, found that 49% of the respondents between ages 18 and 19 experience symptoms of anxiety and depression. Dawn Brown, Director of Community Engagement at NAMI, said NAMI has seen an overall increase in call volume to its helpline this year compared to last. And she said, a lot of callers don't have a mental health diagnosis, yet they are experiencing symptoms of anxiety and depression. Coping with the pandemic is creating symptoms in folks otherwise not affected by mental health conditions. You may know folks yourselves who have similar experiences. I know I do. A survey from the U.S. Census Bureau finds more than 1/3 of Americans are showing signs of clinical anxiety or depression. According to reports from the CDC, I found this very interesting. Younger adults, racial Latino minorities, essential workers, and unpaid caregivers who are usually in their homes alone, day after day after day, providing care for a loved one, that these people show experience of worse mental health outcomes, increased substance use, and elevated suicidal ideation. These findings are alarming, revealing the very real and, I'm afraid, current struggle folks are having after dealing with months of isolation, economic uncertainty due to job loss, limited aid, plus ongoing confusion, myriad unanswered questions, and disinformation about the threat of contracting the virus and what it will mean for their welfare and for that of their families. Now, I'd like to just say a little bit about families and children, and I'm absolutely delighted to hear from the previous recipients what you, Women in Philanthropy, have been focusing on, and so many of providing for so many of our nonprofit organizations, because these nonprofit organizations that work so hard to meet basic needs are also filling in the gaps with mental health needs of our children and families. Of course, our children's welfare is dependent, absolutely dependent, on the well-being and functioning of their parents and home life. Additionally, children's growth and development is greatly influenced by education, teachers, relatives, friends, and the larger community in which they live. Consistency, order, structure, routine, healthy age-appropriate relationships, and safe, caring environments contribute to and are necessary for children to thrive, feel secure, safe, loved, to learn and grow into their potential, and to possess a positive sense of self-esteem and worth. Daily routine, structure, and socialization, as most children have experienced and known as the norm, have been totally disrupted. Unfortunately, the same is true for so many of their parents. All too often, this has left families and children in the dark, wondering and worrying about what comes next. Parents worry and feel guilty about how they are going to make it, how to provide food, shelter, education, and care for their families and pay their bills. What happens if they get sick or die? Who will care for their children, even while they work, if they do work? How can they monitor their children's educational needs when many do not possess technological skills? How can they be patient and attentive to children's needs when they themselves are sleep-deprived, anxious, depressed, and without necessary help? I will tell you that this summer when I would see some of my neighbors from a distance, and I'm fortunate to live on a street with, where there are children. There are school-age children. And even from my privileged and well-resourced neighbors with school-age children, these same folks have experienced stress and strain. While they have enjoyed gifts of family time, creative play, and enjoyed activities that this time has given them that they might not otherwise have had, they too show signs of fatigue, impatience, and need for return to what they once knew as normal. For those in much less resource circumstances, this scene is magnified exponentially. One way or another, everyone feels the toll. Outbreak of temper and impatience can lead to verbal, emotional, and physical abuse in families. Here are some of the crisis-related symptoms experienced in children. Symptoms which, if over time are not given appropriate attention, can develop into more serious threats to their mental health. So I'm going to go through a list of symptoms that are being identified in our children. Our children are worried. There's lots of sadness. There's irritability and boredom, loss of interest in schoolwork, fears of getting sick themselves, of their parents getting sick and dying, fear of hospitalization. Our children feel lonely. They're missing their friends and the people they are used to seeing at school. They're missing activities and stimulation. They're missing celebration of important achievements. And often this is accompanied by feelings of grief. Children are experiencing disturbed sleep and nightmares, sometimes having difficulty going to sleep, sometimes waking up in the middle of the night, and sometimes sleep deprived as a result of this, and sometimes sleeping way too much because they've become depressed or lost interest. Other symptoms include inattention, agitation, separation anxiety, clinginess, hopelessness, shame, and embarrassment related to their circumstances. We should never, ever overlook this in children who live in marginalized, underprivileged circumstances. Shame becomes not just a feeling, but a state in which one becomes identified as shame. And it can be carried with you throughout life. I can't tell you how many people I have seen over the years in my practice who have finally talked about their shame, and it was always related to trauma of some kind. And their stories, I was always so privileged to hear and honored to hear, because it was often that they would say, I've never spoken this out loud to anyone in my life. So our children carry shame and embarrassment. There are setbacks in learning. Also, our children are hungry, physical hunger. I spoke with a couple of the nonprofit organizations here in Hilton Head, the Children's Center and the Boys and Girls Club. And in both organizations, they say that some of their children ask for second helpings, often because there's a shortage of food at home. Our children are feeling unsafe. Safety is vital in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Safe is first and foremost. You never sacrifice safety, and yet our kids are feeling unsafe, and often in their own homes and families due to threat of victimization. Also, there is the predisposal to internet compulsivity for those kids who do have access. Idle time without guidance and supervision, leaving many feeling lost. Underprivileged children are at increased risk of exploitation, victims of violence and abuse. Violence toward children contributes to depression, anxiety, suicide, and substance abuse. While children are resilient, how they respond to a crisis is dependent on how they are cared for throughout that crisis. How they are cared for will shape their behavioral responses. So let me just share with you a little bit about what some of the agencies in our local community are doing. VIM of Hilton Head and Bluffton are providing ongoing mental health services to clients in their caseloads by way of telemedicine and telephone services. Unfortunately, the number of volunteer therapists is limited. Coastal Empire Mental Health Clinic, located on Dillon Road, provides an array of mental health services, including psychiatrists there who can assess and prescribe medications. I believe this is a county-supported organization, and they will provide services on a sliding scale fee. However, it is not free, so you have to be able to pay something to go there. And they have had difficulty reaching their clients with technology because so many people don't have access to that. CODA, an organization to help folks shelter and have safety when there is domestic violence. The shelters remain closed and have been closed for months now. There have been increased calls for help. Currently, families are housed in 3 hotels in the county. And what I was told is that there are more people in these 3 hotels that could be accommodated in all the shelters at any one time. So you can see that there's a burgeoning need there. Deep Well, the director there described the COVID-19 pandemic as a never-ending hurricane. She further explained they are serving many for the first time, many of whom have previously been self-sufficient and have even been donors themselves to Deep Well's cause. Many report having gone through their savings because, as I said earlier, this has now reached a chronic stage. And I heard some terrible stories in terms of just being heart-wrenching, how folks in desperation sometimes go to get these quick loans that have outrageous interest rates, such that the loans now will be impossible for them to pay back. But they do that out of desperation. She said the pandemic has caused destabilizing anxiety and stress for families, and that dealing with COVID, she described it as a marathon, not a sprint. They have already spent, I think in the August newsletter, at least 3 times what they spent last year for housing and rent. And the number of meals that they have provided to families is, I mean, it's just amazing what they are doing. The Children's Center, as you know, serves children 6 years old to 8 years old. And they currently have, I think there are about 115 children that get help there, get childcare. They have converted some space as well into virtual learning centers for the children who are in 1st and 2nd grade. and they report that the children miss school, miss friends, worry about their parents, and also have virtual learning challenges. I think this is a huge need for our children, the challenges that they have in distant learning, and yet it's necessary to provide safety, and what that's going to do to their learning, to their sense of self-esteem, and to their worth, and also how it can create feelings of shame and embarrassment. The Boys and Girls Club, I think they currently have 72 children daily from kindergarten through 12th grade, 7:30 to 5:30, and are open on Friday nights and Saturdays for teenagers to have a place to gather and also receive educational support. They too identified virtual learning as challenging for the younger kids who do not have attention span needed for computer instruction. They described the children as tired, feeling stress from home, hungry, and as I said before, requesting second helpings. The children often do not know who will be picking them up or where they will be going due to the parents' need to work as many hours as possible. The center does an amazing job to provide safety, structure, activity, food, help with educational needs, socialization, and opportunity for kids to be kids who are cared for while they are there. And I understand that they have a waiting list of 50. NAMI continues to provide, our local NAMI, continues to provide educational programs and support groups by way of Zoom calls. Calls have also increased. There are no centers here for the mentally ill. Reported, this was frightening, I was told that there is reported increase in the number of calls from parents worried about their daughters who are now cutting. This is a behavior that is often seen in trauma-related injuries and depression disorders. They have at NAMI an express need for group homes for the mentally ill, and I was told, I think her name is Sarah, that they have great hope to open 2 clubhouses in the upcoming future, one in Bluffton and one in Beaufort. The national director of NAMI explained how mental health illness does not do well with uncertainty and ambiguity, and certainly our lives are filled today with uncertainty and ambiguity. The Mental Health America President and CEO Paul Giaffrido stated that the country may be underreacting to mental health toil, may get worse due to widespread grief, people grieving alone, and loved ones dying alone. Our South Carolina Department of Mental Health reports the highest level of calls for mental health needs in the past 4 years, including Hurricane Matthew. As Leslie mentioned in her introduction of me, I meet weekly by way of Zoom with other mental health professionals around the country and also Canada. And they too are citing isolation, the constant threat of danger, grief, financial insecurity as major threats to psychological well-beings. And the therapists themselves are struggling with their desire to provide services, how to provide safe environments, and to present themselves, you know, like all of us do, as if we have our act together so that we can help those who are in need. And they are challenged to do so. And this group of people includes psychiatrists who are working in hospitals. In our own Hilton Head Hospital, I'm pleased, and many of you may already know, I believe in the last year and a half or so, that we now have an inpatient geriatric unit to meet the needs of folks in older years. Other than that, there are no mental health services at the hospital. I asked about the staff there and how they're holding up, and I was told that for the most part they're doing well, and they do have an EAP, an employee assistance program, where they can get psychological help whenever needed. So you can see, not only from what I'm sharing with you, but from what you are experiencing in your own communities and you hear on the news and read in the newspapers, that the picture is alarming. And it does indeed paint the widespread fallout from COVID-19 on our psychological and emotional status. And in these anxious and uncertain times, I believe there can also be opportunities that arise. Innovative options not previously considered now may become new ways of problem solving and attending to the needs at hand. Certainly technology has taught us a lot about this. This is true in mental health. I believe that there is an increased awareness of need for attention to mental health, certainly from all of those of us who are involved in it. But also community agencies and nonprofits are increasingly aware of the needs for mental health services. There are online mental health screenings and helplines from a number of organizations: NAMI, Crisis Text Line, Mental Health America, National Suicide Hotline, the CDC, and others. I do have a number of resources, Leslie, that I would be glad to share that list with you, and then you can share them with members. We were already behind the start line in the provision of mental health services in our country and in our local community. Though we are more challenged, identification of a current reality helps us plan and hopefully implement appropriate actions to address and include mental health assessment is vital to our overall health and well-being. Indeed, your interest alone is evidence of attention to mental health. Again, the President and CEO, Paul Gianfrido, I'm sure I'm slaughtering his name, stated his recommendation that all of us should issue calls to our lawmakers to make mental health screening as common as blood pressure screening, and to also suggest that there be increased investment in needed dollars to rebuild the mental health care system in our country. Again, I too am open to your questions and commentary, and so I will provide my email address. It's fpbrennan, F is in Fred, P is in Peggy, Brennan @outlook.com, and my telephone number, 703-608-8697. With any questions or commentary, I would welcome them. Thank you so much for this privilege.
Thank you so much, Peggy. Oh, wait, Peggy. I have the presentation for you.
Thank you.
I want to say I've known Peggy for a long, long time, and I've always known her as being wife, mother, grandmother, the perfect hostess, and church member. I did not know about her professional expertise. So thank you, Peggy. We've all benefited from that so much. And now, in our video, I think we've made full circle. We're back around to me again, Elizabeth Loda, and I am so privileged to be chair of Women in Philanthropy. As I've watched all of the nonprofits that we've been able to fund and the projects that have been completed, I'm just so proud, and I can't wait to encourage other women to become members as well. I want to thank Peaches Peterson, again, for setting all of this up for us. Thank you, Peaches. You did a phenomenal job. I want to thank Cynthia Cullen and James Brown. They are our video gurus, and I'm sure we're all going to benefit when we see this video that we can put out to our whole organization. And I want to thank the community church, too, for allowing us their facility and making this video possible. In conclusion, I just want to say that I'm hoping next spring we will have our luncheon as scheduled. The date is May 5th, 2021. We've already secured the venue at Sea Pines, so please read the newsletter. That's where you will be able to find out details about the spring luncheon and about all the other events that we have planned and will be going on during the year. Thank you so much, everybody.